morning, and thank you for joining us for our training and technical assistance session for the FY26 State Competitive Grants Continuation RFGA. My name is Diane Trujillo. I am the Director of Programs. Also on the call is Lou Thompson, our management analyst, Thomas Darnell, our grants officer, and Sean Newman and Mary Van Verst, who are both program officers for Serve Washington. A few housekeeping items. This session will be quite shorter than our new and recompete session, but we do want to cover the process and timeline, some key highlights, and then open this up for questions as needed. The RFGA process would be you'll submit your grant and e-grants. We will reach out to you for any clarification items that need your attention or any questions that we may have. We will submit those applications to AmeriCorps prior to the March 31st, 2026 deadline. And then after that submission, if AmeriCorps has additional clarification, they will most likely reach out to you directly as a subgrantee. And then the awards will be made, and I will cover the timeline in this next slide. So we would expect per AmeriCorps' communication that they will notify successful applicants in mid-June of this year. And there may, like I said, there may be an additional clarification period after that. And the awards may not be issued until mid-August. So we are pushing back the project start time by at least 1 month. So in the past, as a continuation program, you may be used to starting up your program in July or August, and we will be unable to start any projects prior to September 1st. A reminder to please follow the dates in the RFGA. Please send any additional documents needed directly to Serve Washington at that email address listed, and be sure to send in, if needed, your most recent single audit or evaluation report, if applicable. Some reminders about the cost share. This has not changed from FY25, so those percentages are still accurate. There has been no change to the maximum cost per MSY or the full-time living allowance or charges for criminal history checks. So please continue to budget accordingly for that. The page limits would apply. However, as a continuation, you would not necessarily be making any changes to your narrative or logic model. As a reminder, please do not start a new application. Click on continuation. Remember to go section by section and make sure there aren't any changes. If there's really no changes, it's great to enter an A for the continuation narrative. If you do have changes, please notate those in your continuation narrative box. Do not make changes in the original narratives. Please reach out to our Serve Washington email address with any questions about changes to your evaluation plan, and we will route that to Lou and/or your program officer. All right, Thomas is going to speak about budget instructions.
Yeah, so in continuation, don't look to expand your program unless you have really strong enrollment. Okay, so only request money at a proportional rate. So if you're increasing your costs by a certain amount, make sure that that's not entirely federal. There's no guarantees about what you'll be awarded in continuation, and there may potentially be amendments. We've had this in recent years where they reduced the number of MSY for some programs, and we had to figure out how to deal with that. Yeah, if there is an increase request, make sure that you justify the request fully in your continuation narrative. Um, so the match has been updated in the last couple of years. So it used to be capped at 50% of the budget for cost reimbursement programs. Now it's capped at 30%. It's not a change from last year, but a change from recent years.
All right, thanks, Thomas.
Yeah.
And some general e-grants tips are, just that we remind everyone of every year in terms of formatting and spacing. So if you do make any of those changes, be sure that it still adheres to the page limits when printed out. And then always a reminder to save and validate your budget often once you're in e-grants, and use Chrome when available. Even as a continuation, it's really important to read all the application instructions and making sure that your data matches up in all sections. Make sure that any changes or updates on your face sheet are also accurate, and you may want to notate those changes in your continuation changes box as well. A reminder about the project dates, and always give yourself an early deadline, and print it out and review it as much as possible to make sure you feel confident about the application you're submitting. And back to Thomas about
Yeah.
these additional budget tips.
So I don't believe we have any cost reimbursement programs this year in continuation. So for posterity, let's just pause on this slide for a moment, but I don't think we need to go over this. So next
Okay.
slide. And next slide. Okay, so for fixed amount, um, it's straightforward. Just make sure that you put the source of funds in when you put your budget, and make sure that it matches your other revenue in the demographics section.
All right, thanks again. So a little something extra, just kind of a reminder about if the design lends to workforce development opportunities, and are you providing additional benefits to members and enhancing that member experience? Even as a continuation, it's important to remind you of the emphasis that AmeriCorps is putting on that for new and recompetes in the NOFO. So just something to keep in mind. And a reminder about the period of performance. So as you know, AmeriCorps makes 3-year grant awards. However, you are required to submit a continuation application every year, as well as update your budget and those other pieces as applicable. And the period of performance may not start before September 1st. Another reminder on that. Also, you are not guaranteed continuation awards for future years. Obviously, that is always dependent upon future appropriations, as well as satisfactory performance and adherence to compliance requirements. And one last reminder, if you have any questions at all, please always feel free to send those to the servewashington@ofm.wa.gov email. We will route and address them accordingly. Get your questions in sooner rather than later, so we have plenty of time to address that. And with that, I will allow for any verbal questions so we can answer them here in this space. All
Carrie, I
right,
think
not
that would be you, so you can come off mute and say no questions if you want.
I don't have any questions, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks
great.
for coming.
Thank you. All right, I will go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you for coming today. And